God, I hope my next nerve dares to kill that neighbor dog. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spinner Reviews. Today, for the first time in a few months, I'm going to be doing a movie review of this movie called Nerve that just came out a few weeks ago. Normally, I would just post a little thing on Twitter whenever I see a new movie release, since, I mainly talk about music here. But in this case, I think this is a movie that deserves a lot more attention than I think it's getting. Because, with all the mixed receptions of the Ghostbusters and Suicide Squads of the world, and I did see Suicide Squad right after this, but my thoughts on that are a whole other mess for another day. This one seems to have gotten kind of swept under the rug, which I think is kind of unfortunate because it's a really intriguing kind of suspense technology thriller, for lack of a better term. I'm not really a film critic, as you guys can tell. The basic premise of it is that there's this app that comes out called Nerve, and what happens is that you decide to be either a watcher or a player. And if you choose to be a player, you do these challenges, these dares, that give you larger and larger amounts of money as you go along. It's basically a tournament to see who can do the craziest stuff until it's just like this one-on-one thing that happens toward the end of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything here because a lot of it is kind of bent on where it goes. Personally, I was pretty on the edge of my seat throughout most of this thing, because it is kind of a gradual rise as far as the stakes go in these dares, and where the main characters in this thing, played by Emma Roberts and Dave Franco, where they go throughout all this and how their relationship changes throughout all of it. One insane night that just gets crazier and crazier as it goes along. You guys might remember that my favorite album of last year was 2.0 by Big Data, which kind of tackled the ideas of stuff like cyber corruption, but under the kind of mask of this more mainstream-ish kind of sound. And I think Nerve is kind of doing a similar thing in a film sense. So we're talking about how like a viral app like this can get totally out of control in this admittedly kind of exaggerated version of modern society, but still a version of it. There are certain parts of it, especially in the first third or half of the movie, that do seem pretty realistic as far as how everything builds. The crazy thing is that if you think about it, this movie was made long before Pokemon Go came out. And I see that because there's kind of a scary amount of similarities in that it was this app that took off tremendously like overnight, and has people kind of intruding on public life, I guess for lack of a better term. And don't get me wrong, I do play Pokemon Go occasionally, but it is that kind of similarity where life imitates art that kind of gets you thinking even more going into a movie like this. And it kind of explores the hive mind of the kind of internet fandom and viewers that can feed into the insanity that goes into this kind of stuff. And I'm sorry I'm being kind of vague about all this. One, because I decided to do this off the cuff without a script. And two, because this is the kind of thing where you should kind of see for yourself where it goes toward the end. My one real gripe is that toward the third act, there are a couple like leaps in logic where I think, wait a minute, how could that happen if the app reaches out to so many people? And how you kind of go down a rabbit hole like that the more you think about it. But I think by the time that stuff happens, you're still caught up in so many other things about it that it can be kind of easy to overlook that for the most part. And one other thing I kind of loved about this is that there are hackers, especially toward the climax of it, but it's not, the cliche glasses wearing, like, hitting random keys automatically solves everything, thing. Like, there's literal mentions in this nationally released movie of the dark web, which is kind of awesome in a weird kind of way. I'm actually really surprised by how enjoyable this thing was altogether. Mostly because, when you hear, like, a movie based around super modern, like, internet things, like, you imagine there's going to be a ton of pandering, a ton of, like, memes brought up, and it's going to be dated in 5 years, and this might be dated in 5 years just depending on where technology goes over time, but that's just something that you get naturally, no matter how good or bad it is with something with the subject matter. And yeah, I definitely recommend you guys see Nerve if you can. Probably would recommend not seeing a trailer. I didn't see a trailer going into it, but from what I heard from people, it gave away a couple of the plot twists toward the end that I don't want spoiled for you guys, and I'm glad it wasn't spoiled for me either. So I'm going to give this a very strong 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend this thing. If you guys have seen Nerve, I'm kind of curious what you think about it. If you want to leave any more spoilerish thoughts to discuss in the comments there, I'm really interested in talking more in that kind of way. So if you haven't seen the movie, to play it safe, not going into the comments if you're interested in seeing this. So if you guys have seen this movie, what do you think about it? about it. Do you agree with what I had to say? Do you disagree? Have any feedback about the channel in general? What I'm doing with movie reviews in particular. You know, it's not really something I do as often as the album reviews, but I still like to do it every now and then. Share this around with anyone who might be interested. Follow me on Twitter for more updates, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews. Bye.